So, I have something to confess as a Sonic fan. Until 2025, I had never fully played through the Xbox 360 and PS3 version of Sonic Unleashed. For the 22 years I've been roaming this earth, I've been familiar with the version released on Wii and PS2 and considered it one of my favorite Sonic games of all time, but I'd never fully completed its HD counterpart. This is not to say that I didn't have any experience with it. I distinctly remember playing it as a kid. I'd played the 360 version at a friend's house a lot, but we never got very far, and I also have very vivid memories of playing the demo on PS3, which, if I recall, only contained Windmill Isle Day Act 2. Around the end of 2022, when I was on a huge Sonic binge and replayed a bunch of games, I tried to play Unleashed on PS3 via emulator, but that didn't work out very well, and I'd intended to just leave it there and carry on. And then in March of 2025, a bunch of crazy genius bastards created an unofficial PC port of the game, allowing it to be played on the most modern system you can get. Well shit, I guess now I have to play it. I really want to give a massive shout out to the team behind the Unleashed PC recompilation. This is genuinely insane, and I'm glad this game gets to see the light of day once again, seeing as all the Sonic games to come after are all getting remasters. Shit, even Lost World eventually got a PC port from Sega. The funny thing is, during that Sonic binge from 2022 that I mentioned, I ended up doing a 100% playthrough of Unleashed on the Wii, so the game was already somewhat fresh on my mind. I got to playing the HD version via the PC port, and after finishing it, I had a lot of thoughts. Thoughts that I can't keep contained in my mind, but also thoughts that were heavily predicated upon how I felt about the Wii version. I played that version of the game when I was really young. I have a lot of memories of it, and originally after finishing the HD version, I told myself I still preferred the Wii game overall. I've watched for years as the Wii version was tossed aside and labeled the inferior experience, and I did not feel that way at all, but this was also with it being a long time since I'd played it. So fuck it. I replayed both side by side, and today I've decided to talk about how I feel on both and what I think of Sonic Unleashed as a whole. This is my comparison / retrospective / review / whatever the hell you want to call it of Sonic Unleashed. Before I start things off, I want to mention that I'll be referring to the PS3, 360, and now PC versions of Sonic Unleashed as the HD version, and the Wii and PS2 as just the Wii version. Personally, I grew up with the Wii version. Most of the people who I know played it on the Wii, and it's just easier to say than Wii and PS2 version. With that established, let's dive right in with some context. Sonic Unleashed is a platformer released in 2008. The version you're likely familiar with came out on the PS3 and the Xbox 360, but at the same time Sonic Team was developing it, they worked with Dimps on a scaled-down game with the same name and most of the same levels and gameplay elements that released on the Wii and the PS2. Dimps was a frequent collaborator with Sega, notable for developing many of the handheld Sonic games released on the Game Boy Advance and DS, so to see them here is not surprising. With two versions of the same game existing, there are lots of ways that they branch out in terms of differences, but let's just look at the core game first and see how things diverge. Unleashed is split into two primary styles of gameplay, the daytime stages where you play as Sonic, and the nighttime stages where you play as the Werehog, and both offer radically different experiences. First up, the day stages. Here the focus is on a classic blend of speed and platforming. You have access to a boost button that allows Sonic to rocket forward at incredible speeds, destroying enemies all the while but also making reacting to the obstacles in front of you a bit more difficult. Generally, the stages switch between 2D and 3D platforming, with a mix of sections that focus on going as fast as you possibly can and attaching your finger to the boost button while dodging obstacles, and segments that focus more on pure platforming, jumping over pits and stuff. Areas where you generally don't want to be boosting 24/7. Unleashed Wii and HD share this formula, but there are some notable differences, and the big one to me is the level design. Unleashed for the Wii's level design is more flat, and what I mean by that is that there isn't a lot in the way of platforming, especially in the 3D sections. The level construction and terrain lacks the variety that the HD version has, and I think in general these stages have a more slow pace, which I feel is an intentional design choice. Even Sonic's boost works a little different. In the HD version, he'll boost for as long as you hold the button down, assuming you have the ring energy in the gauge. However, the Wii version has these boost stocks, for lack of a better word. A press of the boost button will have Sonic boost automatically for a couple of seconds, and you can't really steer Sonic while he's boosting either. It's definitely not as easy to use outside of sections where Sonic's movement is influenced by the stage, like during dash pad segments. In saying that, I actually do prefer the Wii version's level design in a lot of ways. Flat level design is usually a death sentence for me when it comes to Sonic games, but Unleashed on the Wii manages to make its levels very wide open despite the flat terrain. There's lots of alternate pathways and shortcuts you can find. It's very classic-esque and super satisfying to take an alternate path that leads to a faster route or even a collectible. The HD version has these too, but it definitely feels more prominent in the Wii version to me, as the HD version is more focused on testing your reflexes with its hazards rather than offering multiple ways to get to the goal most of the time. I also think the Wii version's level settings are more interesting. There's a lot of really cool set pieces here that are just completely absent in the HD game. Cool Edge Day is the one that really stands out to me. The Wii version's second half takes place mostly inside an icy cave, and I love the aesthetics of this part. It just looks really, cool, and I think the contrast between the outdoor areas and the cave areas is really neat. Comparatively, the HD version takes place mostly outdoors. I remember playing through this level for the first time and being kinda disappointed by the lacking amount of cave areas. There's these whales making their contractually obligated appearance in a Sonic game, and they both have sections where Sonic rides on a bobsled, although the HD version doesn't let you boost while riding on him. Overall, I think the Wii version is just more interesting. Dragon Road Day is another one that stands out to me. The Wii version's varying paths all contain different cool obstacles, and the last section with the cherry blossoms is also a favorite of mine. I gotta say, the Wii version having Sonic surf while on water instead of just running on it was a really sweet design choice. I've spent a lot of time glazing the Wii version, but believe me, there's plenty of things that the HD version does better than it. While I love the level design in the Wii version, I think the HD version certainly controls better, and this is not to say that the Wii game controls bad, but there's definitely something off about it in comparison. Sonic just feels a lot heavier. If there's a single thing that I can say HD Unleashed has over probably every other boost formula Sonic game, it's the sheer sense of speed. Even if future games like Generations have more refined level design, the speed at which Sonic moves in Unleashed just feels so mesmerizing. It's hard for me to describe, but going fast in this game just feels fucking amazing even compared to other games, and I can think of a few levels that overshadow the Wii counterparts on speed factor alone, namely Rooftop Run Day. This stage in particular is interesting because we have 3 versions to compare. In addition to the 2 featured in Unleashed, there's a third incarnation in Sonic Generations, which came out 3 years after Unleashed. Generations' take on Rooftop Run is cool as it hits a lot of the same beats, but separates them between the classic and modern acts. For example, the Clock Tower Climb, one of my favorite sections in Unleashed HD's Rooftop Run, also appears in the Generations stage, but only for classic Sonic. Classic Sonic's Rooftop Run also features this area with a ton of giant barrels, which I think is a throwback to the night stage of Rooftop Run. Overall though, between these 3 boost stages, the HD version of Unleashed easily has my favorite take on Rooftop Run, and it's one of my favorite stages ever. The sense of speed combined with the music and the locale being so cool to travel through just trumps the other 2 for me. As a whole, I don't really have much bad to say about either the Wii or the HD version's daytime stages. They're a treat to go through and I love just about every second spent in them. I guess the one thing I dislike are these sections where you deal with these mini-bosses in the form of either a giant sphere-shaped robot or these green guys. They're mostly automated and kinda just bog the pace down. I guess mini-bosses isn't the right word as you don't fight them in the HD version, but in the Wii version they are treated more like encounters. It even plays the boss music for the spherical robot. Anyway, on to the night stages. Here, Sonic assumes his werehog form, trading off his speed for sheer brute force and stretchy limbs, a staple werewolf power, of course. This is the more divisive half of the game, and understandably so in my eyes, as speed is thrown out the window entirely for a slow-paced platforming beat-em-up. The werehog has 2 basic attack buttons you can use to beat the ever-loving hell out of the plentiful quantity of enemies that'll show up, and stringing them together will allow you to perform combos. I'll say right now that I don't really fuck with the idea of the werehog's gameplay in a Sonic game, but that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. That said, there are some genuine problems I have with these stages. I think the beat-em-up gameplay itself isn't bad in the slightest. There's definitely something extremely satisfying about it for sure. I love being able to grab the enemies and toss them. That's probably my favorite thing to do with the werehog. Rather than wings, the werehog has a standard life bar that you can refill with said rings, as well as an unleashed bar that upon filling up, allows the werehog to use the unleashed state that powers him up. As far as platforming goes, it's pretty standard fare, albeit with a much slower pace than the daytime stages. This is also where the werehog's stretchiness is used for hanging onto hooks and grabbing onto poles, as well as hanging on ledges. Okay, so that's fine and all, but what are the issues? A pretty big one I have is the horrendous lack of enemy variety. Once you get to the third stage, you've practically encountered every kind of enemy the game has to offer. There's really not a lot here, and I don't think it helps that much of the enemies that the Werehog fights are Eggman robots that already appear in the daytime stages. I can accept the natural monotony that comes from this kind of gameplay, but I genuinely do think having different kinds of enemies in the different places that you visit would have really helped. You can only ignore this issue for so long when you're beating the hell out of the same enemies and doing the same QTEs. Whenever an enemy is low on health, you get a prompt for a quick time event that you can perform for some extra points and a quick kill, and because of the lack of enemy variety, you often have to watch the same animations over and over and over again. The Wii version, funnily enough, has an enemy that, unless I'm mistaken, does not appear in the HD version at all, but it's really not much. Some of these levels also get pretty long, which may not have bothered me much, but with the lack of enemy variety, it just compounds into the Werehog stages feeling like kind of a slog sometimes. I honestly wish these stages had a bigger emphasis on the platforming. Some of the DLC Werehog stages are almost nothing but giant obstacle courses, and they're some of the most fun in the game because of it. When they're testing your ingenuity and reflexes with the Werehog's acrobatics, it's an absolute joy. Not that the base game doesn't have these kinds of areas. One that immediately stands out to me is the clock tower climb in the HD rooftop run night, which is awesome. I love trying to get through this section without stopping. It's so damn fun. There's a touch of light puzzle solving, but neither game does much with it. In fact, even just calling them puzzles is probably a massive stretch. In the HD version, you have these multicolored switches that you need to bring to the corresponding colored altar, and in the Wii version, you'll occasionally run into a dark Gaia gate that requires collecting these icons to pass. I prefer these obstacles a bit more since you only have to touch the icons to collect them, unlike the switches in the HD version, which prevent you from attacking while you're carrying them. As far as comparing the HD and Wii Werehog stages, I think these are a bit closer in terms of design, but like with Sonic, the Werehog definitely controls better in the HD game, and I think that version has smoother combat too. Also, whoever decided to make the input for running to be flicking the analog stick forward in the Wii version needs to find God. As a whole, I'm not a fan of how the Werehog feels. He accelerates a little too fast for me, but it's way worse in the Wii version, and he feels slippery here. Still, despite these issues, I definitely don't hate these stages. Actually, I like them quite a bit. Much like with the daytime stages, the Wii Werehog stages feature some unique locations not seen in the HD stages. Some of them are really cool. I love the Ice Temple in Cool Edge Night, the Cliffsides and Arid Sands Night, the Aqueduct and Rooftop Run Night, and the giant waterfall and Dragon Road Night that you get to climb. I just think these unique areas add a lot of personality to the countries and helps flesh them out. During the course of your world adventure, you'll obtain the means to power up the Werehog. In the HD version, this is done by investing EXP that you obtain from defeating enemies in the stages. At the end of levels or through the pause menu, you can invest the EXP you've obtained into upgrading the Werehog as well as Sonic, although I should mention right now that this system was clearly designed more with the Werehog in mind than it was Sonic. Sonic only has 2 stats to upgrade, speed and ring energy, while the Werehog has combat, strength, health, unleashed, and the shield. Combat is how you obtain new moves and combos, so it's always the stat that I prioritize first. Getting new combos is cool, but unfortunately it means that for the first few stages, you're stricken with a very limited amount of options. Still, leveling up the combat stat to unlock combos doesn't require that much EXP, compared to every other stat, which gets progressively more ridiculous with the amount of EXP required to progress. I probably would have counted this against the game, but thanks to the power of hindsight, I was already aware of an exploit that makes gathering EXP much easier, and allows you to avoid grinding it through replaying stages. So the game has shops where you can buy food, and feeding it to Sonic will grant him EXP. Early on, you can speak to this young lad named Wentos, and after enough prodding, he becomes available as a traveling shopkeeper. The big difference between Wentos and all the other shops is that not only is where he appears random, but so is the stock that he carries. On a lucky day, it's more than possible to find Wentos selling an item to you for less than you can sell it to him. For example, you can buy a pizza from him for 20 rings and sell it back to him for 100 rings. From here on, the strategy is obvious. You buy as much of that item as you can afford, sell it back to Wentos, and then rinse and repeat until you're swimming in gold, and then you bulk buy food and shove it down that goddamn hedgehog's throat. You want to stock up on either the Hero Sandwich or the Big G Steak, which will both grant 50 EXP. It's pretty easy and fast to max Sonic out with this strategy, but the Werehog will take you much longer. I'll say this much, your finger is going to be on fucking fire from the amount of mashing X to feed Sonic. The Wii version does contain an upgrade system, but it's way more simple and only used for the Werehog. Even though it's only been a few years, I'd honestly completely forgotten this was a thing in the Wii game. You collect this red stuff from beating enemies, and you can also find it in capsules. It's called Dark Gaia Force, and at the end of every level it's invested into the Werehog, and it upgrades his health, his unleashed meter, and it also unlocks new combos when you reach certain quantities. Unlike the HD version, you can't choose what to upgrade first, it all goes in one predetermined order, which is a little lame. Ultimately, despite my gripes with some aspects of these stages, I didn't find myself having any major issues with the HD Werehog stages, and I think I prefer them to the ones in the Wii game. Some of them are genuinely really fun, although I think the PC ports features definitely helped with that. The performance certainly factors into it. If you've played HD Unleashed on its original hardware, you know this game drops frames like a motherfucker at many points. The level that gets memed on the most for this is Jungle Joyride Day, but many of the night stages have the same problem, and the weird thing is it happens even if there are no enemies on the screen, so what is even causing the drops in these situations? With the recompilation though, it runs at a smooth 60, or 120 if you desire, throughout basically the entire game. It's pretty surreal to see if I'm being honest, because even though I had never completed Sonic Unleashed HD as a kid, I was well aware throughout the years of how piss poor the game runs. Another major benefit of the PC port scene in the night stages is the music. There's this song, the Werehog Battle Theme, that plays when you encounter an enemy, and since these stages have a ton of enemies, it means you hear this song all the goddamn time, and it quickly becomes grating, especially because it means you hardly ever hear the stage themes. I've always considered Unleashed to be a top 3 Sonic OST, and I can sing the praises of the day stage themes all day, but the night stages are just as incredible, and many of them are extremely unique as far as Sonic songs go. With the Werehog battle theme constantly replacing them, it means you would often hear that song more than the actual stage's soundtrack. The battle theme isn't even that bad, it's just that hearing it so fucking often makes you grow sick of it. However, the PC port includes a handy feature that allows you to turn it off. With this setting, it will not play during the night stages at all. It still plays in certain missions, but I'm fine with that. Honestly, I have to once again shout out the devs of the recompilation, because if my first full experience with Sonic Unleashed HD was the original version, with the terrible performance and the constant Werehog battle theme blaring in my ears, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed the game nearly as much as I did, which means I probably wouldn't be making this video. So thank you. I should also mention the absolute surplus of Werehog stages in the Wii version. Each country has one primary day stage and like 3 to 5 night stages, not accounting for missions. I honestly wish they had made multiple unique acts for the day stages too, as it would have been cooler and a little less repetitive for both Sonic and the Werehog to traverse multiple unique acts, rather than only the Werehog doing that and Sonic doing one unique stage, followed by a handful of missions that reuse the same level design. Between the action stages, you'll be traveling in towns that act as hub worlds. Here you can wander around and talk to the many NPCs who offer colorful dialogue in the occasional side quest. The actual towns are pretty small, and they're designed in a way where it's pretty much impossible to get lost, especially since the areas you need to go to reach what the game calls entrance stages, which is where you access the action stages, are located in pretty plain sight. I should make it clear right now that I'm not a fan of hub worlds in Sonic games at all. In my opinion, a simple world map or just going from level to level is the best approach, but Unleashed's hub worlds are pretty much the least offensive implementation you can do, I think. They're compact enough that getting to the actual stages can be done pretty quickly, and more importantly, there's stuff to do here that's actually kind of interesting. Like I mentioned before, you can talk to the NPCs and they offer fun dialogue. I really like how the dynamics between them change as you progress through the game, like the love triangle between students in Spagonia's university. Occasionally an NPC from one town will leave and visit another, and it's cool seeing how they react to the different environments and people, and sometimes you'll get cute strings of side quests resulting from that. It's hard to not call it what it is: charming. It's really charming, and it makes these towns all the more memorable. The towns also contain the shops where you can buy food, as well as the occasional collectible. Most of what I've said refers to the HD version exclusively because the Wii game takes a different approach. Here, the hub worlds are represented entirely by text and artwork. Character models are a thing of the past. Even though most of the NPCs from the HD game are here, they exist only as portraits. The shops are completely absent, as is the food mechanic, since the Wii version's EXP system is vastly different. It works just fine, but it does lose a lot of the personality that the towns in the HD version have, without really speeding up the process of getting to the actual gameplay to compensate. I suppose if there's one thing I can appreciate about the Wii hub worlds, it's the utter lack of load times when it comes to switching from day to night. versus the HD version. Yeah, that's a bit much. Entrance stages are also not present in the Wii version, having sort of been replaced by these. Gaia Gates are where you access the action stages as well as the boss fights. However, they also contain these doors scattered around that can only be opened with Sun and Moon medals. These contain small rooms with puzzles that require Sonic to make use of his abilities as well as the Werehogs to solve, but in turn, completing them will reward you with a large amount of the game's collectibles. I'm talking cutscenes, artwork, and music you can listen to. You can find this stuff in the stages too, but there's a lot hidden in the Gaia Gates, and I'm actually a big fan of these puzzle rooms. They're super fun to go through, and some of them genuinely put your mind to the test. The HD version features collectibles too, and they're primarily hidden in action stages, as well as towns and entrance stages. I guess to comment on the bosses real quick, I'm a bit surprised at how similar most of them are between the two versions. A lot of them are basically one-to-one in concept and gameplay, including the Egg Lancer, which really surprises me given the rather involved nature of that whole fight. The biggest departure is definitely the Dark Guardian. This fight's gimmick from the HD version is that you need to push boxes onto an altar to hurt him, and this gimmick is completely gone in the Wii version. It's just a slugfest, which admittedly is pretty cool. I don't really have much to say for the bosses themselves. They're fine, I guess. Nothing particularly memorable here aside from the aforementioned Egg Lancer. I mentioned Sun and Moon medals earlier, and I'd like to get more into that. These little trinkets are present in both versions of Unleashed, and the major difference is how they're obtained. The HD version scatters the medals everywhere. They're in the hub worlds, in the entrance stages, and of course in the action stages. I have mixed feelings on this. Because Sun and Moon medals are required to progress, it means it's very possible to end up having to play scavenger hunt if you reach a point where you can't access a level because you don't have enough medals. It's particularly annoying because a lot of the medal locations are really out of your way, especially in the day stages, which can make them feel intrusive to the pace of those levels. When medals are the reward for going off the beaten path, I love that, but some medals you really have to go out of your way in a manner that I think is pretty unreasonable. I don't know, I'm just not a fan of gatekeeping progression behind these things. The Wii version handles things in a more reasonable manner in my opinion, as Sun and Moon medals are awarded based on your rank and also aren't required to actually progress, instead being used to open the doors to the puzzle rooms in the Gaia Gates. Now S ranks in Unleashed Wii are very easy to get, which kind of sullies things, but I think it just improves the pace overall. I won't lie though, going through a level on a repeat playthrough in the HD version and getting nearly all the medals in one run is hella satisfying, so it's not all bad. With that said, I think this is a good time to get into some of the content that was cut from the Wii version. The developers did their damnedest to keep the two versions as similar as possible, and I applaud them for that, but some things had to be removed in the process, besides stuff like the food and the simplified hub worlds that I already mentioned. First up, Mazuri. While still present in the Wii version of Unleashed, Savannah Citadel, the action stage, is gone completely. Mazuri in the Wii version is only a hub world, a Gaia Gate, and the Egg Beetle boss fight. This one kinda hurts. I really love Savannah Citadel, both the day and night stages, so seeing it gone is a real bummer for sure. But I guess I am glad they managed to keep Mazuri in as a whole. The other level omitted from the Wii version is Empire City, entirely. There's no action stages, no hub world, no concept art, and since Empire City and its denizens do not appear in any cutscenes, I'm 99% sure there's literally zero trace of Empire City in the Wii game. I'm more mixed on this one. I like Skyscraper Scamper's day stage, and Empire City's hub world also contains some of my favorite NPCs and music. I think part of my fondness for this place comes from the very obvious New York City influence. Skyscraper Scamper Night can fuck itself though, and so can the name Skyscraper Scamper. You might be preparing to ask why they didn't just do what they did with Mazuri and cut the stuff that wasn't important to the story while keeping everything else. The reason is that there is nothing important. Empire City does not house a temple or a Gaia Gate. Story-wise, it really has no relevance, so cutting it doesn't affect the game much at all. It is very sad to see over 4 levels get the boot though. If nothing else, it would have been neat to see how the different level design philosophy of the Wii version would have applied to Savannah Citadel and Skyscraper Scamper. With these two sets of stages missing, as well as the fact that Sun and Moon medals aren't mandatory for progression, the Wii version of Sonic Unleashed is significantly shorter than the HD version, and when you combine that with the slower paced levels, it's also the easier of the two games. Savannah Citadel and Empire City are the two most notable losses for sure, but what else is there? You got the Tornado Defense stages. These are basically a more on-rails version of the Sky Chase stages from Sonic Adventure. You know how in those levels you aim at enemies and then fire shots at them? Here you destroy enemies by performing QuickTime events. This is yet another entry into Unleashed's fucking obsession with QTEs. They're in the day stages, the night stages, the boss fights, and here they are in Tornado Defense, basically being turned into an entire stage on their own. It's not bad though, I really do love the music in the first stage. Yeah, I said first stage. You do this twice, once before going to Spagonia for the first time and once before Eggman Land. They're far enough apart from each other that it isn't a huge issue, but it does kind of feel like you just play through the exact same stage twice, just with a slight bump in difficulty for the second one. Remember how Sky Chase Act 1 didn't have a boss fight in Sonic Adventure? It would have been cool if they did something like that here to make the two stages stand out more. These were cut from the Wii version, which in my opinion does make the story feel a little less dynamic. It's cool being able to actually experience how Sonic and Tails reach certain areas while the planet is broken up in the HD game. Losing that in the Wii version is a bit of a bummer, but it's not that big of a deal. I can live with it. The exorcism missions are not present in the Wii game. I find this one funny. So in the HD version, you run into these NPCs who act strangely at night because they're under Dark Gaia's influence. Early on, you gain access to a camera that allows you to force his influence out of the people, initiating a small enemy encounter. This is first introduced to you in Spagonia with a cutscene and a mandatory exorcism. The cutscene is present in the Wii version, but since the exorcism missions are no longer a thing, that one mandatory exorcism is replaced by this hilarious and brief QTE minigame. This is so funny to me for some reason. Sonic's upgrades in the HD version are also not present in the Wii version. Gonna be real, I completely forgot about this, but the Stomp, Air Boost, Wall Jump, and Light Speed Dash are all upgrades that Sonic must obtain. It's not a huge thing, but I do like how certain stages feature items or paths that require certain upgrades to reach, which incentivizes replaying them once you have those abilities obtained. In the Wii version, he has all these by default from the beginning, but the game doesn't tell you about them until you reach certain levels. It's kind of arbitrary, like the game decides you aren't allowed to know about the Stomp until you reach Halaska, and it's like, why? While these aren't cuts per se, I would like to talk about Eggman Land. It's the final level in both the HD and Wii versions, but the two games handle it very differently. Eggman Land in the HD version is unique because instead of a day and night stage like every other country, Eggman Land is a single action stage where you switch between Sonic and the Werehog. How it works is that you start off as Sonic, you go through his section of stage, and then you reach an hourglass near the end, accompanied by some kind of impassable area for him, where you then switch to the Werehog to progress through his section of stage, and then you repeat that until you finish the level as the Werehog. You probably know this already, but this level is one tough son of a bitch. The worst part is the second Werehog stage where you have to balance over these pipes. For some reason, the Werehog doesn't create a drop shadow on the pipes, so having to jump from pipe to pipe is unreasonably difficult. Funnily enough, this segment is followed by the hardest Sonic section. It's also really fucking long, a little too long for my tastes. In the Wii version, Sonic and the Werehog have their own separate stages to go through just like everywhere else, with one daytime stage and 5 night stages. Wii Eggman Land is the easier of the two, but it also stands out a bit less because of the more conventional design. Oh yeah, the final boss is also very different between the two, and the Wii version is the far superior one here because the HD version's final boss honestly sucks. Both games have the fight split into 3 phases. In the first, you fight Dark Gaia as the Gaia Colossus, and in the third, you use Super Sonic to finish things out, as you tend to do in Sonic games. The HD version's Gaia Colossus section simply has you boosting forward while dodging or destroying rocks that Dark Gaia throws at you. Once you reach him, you attack him by doing QuickTime events. What else? This part of the boss is so boring it makes me want to cry. The Supersonic portion has you zooming across this shield to destroy a bunch of snakes. You don't even fight Dark Gaia with Supersonic directly outside of, again, QuickTime events. In the Wii version, the first section is styled kind of like Punch-Out, and although it's very simple, it's actually pretty fun smacking the hell out of Dark Gaia. The Supersonic portion is pretty cool too, even if it does remind me a little too much of the final boss from Sonic and the Secret Rings. Between these two battles, both games have sections where you play as Sonic and run along the Gaia Colossus' body. They're basically the same in the HD and Wii versions aside from the level design, but the HD version intersperses them between the Gaia Colossus fights, while the Wii version has you play through all 3 Sonic sections one after another immediately after you finish the Gaia Colossus section of the fight. Not sure which one of these I prefer, but overall the fight in the Wii game is way more fun and fits the scale of the epic conflict in my opinion. Now that I've rambled about this game, I suppose I should revisit my statement about my initial feelings. When I completed Sonic Unleashed HD for the first time, I felt very strongly that the Wii version was still superior. Do I feel that way now? Not really, but let me explain. I think the HD version is superior in terms of the amount of content available, the sense of speed in the daytime stages, the nighttime stages as a whole, and the visuals. I gotta bring this up because man, if you showed me this game out of context and told me it was from 17 years ago, I would not believe you. The model quality and the backgrounds, it all looks incredible, and while there was once a time where that came at the cost of the frame rate, as I detailed earlier, it's not really an issue now thanks to the recompilation. I will say the repeated animations on the NPCs does bother me a bit though. The models for them are still pretty good and I absolutely love the human characters' designs, but the same animations constantly being reused by different characters freaks me out a bit. This is not to insult the Wii version. Obviously it was never going to be able to match the visuals of the HD version, but it still looks pretty incredible for a game released fairly early in the Wii's lifespan. I can't say how good it looks for a late PS2 game, but whatever. The Wii version, in my eyes, is superior in terms of the daytime stages level design, the overall smoother campaign design, and the more creative level set pieces. Which one is superior? Well, to me, the pros and cons of each version balance each other out. I can't pick a favorite. I like and dislike things about both, but at the end of the day, I can't personally put one over the other. Is that a massive cop-out anti-climax answer? Absolutely, but that's just how I feel. Regardless, finally experiencing Sonic Unleashed as a whole has really renewed my love for this game. There's a level of ambition to this game that radiates in so many different aspects of how it's designed that I really adore, from the story, to the visuals and music, to the gameplay. It feels like a game the developers put their entire heart into and there's so much fun to be had. Are there things to be pissed about? Absolutely. That's just par for the course with this series, but it's still a blast, and even so long after being introduced to this game as a kid, I still really enjoy it and appreciate it as a game and as an experience.